Thanks very much for coming. If you're not, you kind of get the noise pollution from us. Hopefully you'll learn something about beer too. Thanks very much for coming. I'm Greg Hall with Goose Island Beer Company. We are a little brewery in Chicago, Illinois. We've been around since 1988. We started off as a brew pub in Chicago on the kind of west side of Lincoln Park. There we really started doing beer and food day one. We started off really specializing on English style ales and traditional pub food, and really in the last 5 years have got into a kind of a secondary specialty of doing a lot of Belgian stuff with alternative fermentation, different yeasts that we like to play around with. And one of the things we found is that beer really deserves not only a place at the bar, but the right beers deserve a place at the table as well, especially with the Belgian style ales that have really complexity that we think equals that of the finest wines. The beer that we're starting with tonight is Sophie. This is a Saison style beer that we brew kind of the old-fashioned way. The original Saisons were all farmhouse ales, so they were brewed on the farm by the family. And back then, 200 years ago, all farms were little family farms. So basically, the family ran the farm all year, and their family was big enough to do that other than harvest time. Harvest time, they needed help, so they'd bring in guest workers. And they wouldn't pay the guest workers very much, but to get the guest workers to come back to their farm, rather than the 1,000 or so other farms in the area, they would make beer and give them beer. And they would make beer with the grains they grew, and then some of the spices that they have as well. So what we decided to do is we would make a Saison kind of that old-fashioned way. We used all pale malt, we fermented it in stainless, but then we took about 20% of it and aged it in French oak, which of course was what they would age it in as well. And when we put it in the oak, we did a couple things. One, we put in some special yeast, some wild yeast called Brettanomyces, which will really affect the flavor of the beer and give it that real Belgian character. I'll tell you a little bit more about Brett when we get to Matilda. And then we also put in some orange zest. What a lot of the brewers would do is they'd brew the beer in the winter when it was a little slower on the farm, but they wouldn't serve it until harvest. So it had to be strong enough to last from winter until the next late summer, early fall when they had their harvest. But it also had to be nice and refreshing for those workers around the fields. So before they'd serve it, a lot of times what they do is they would add some extra hops or some extra spice to kind of freshen it up right before they'd serve it. So we chose to put some orange peel in there. While there's a tradition of doing dried orange peel, a lot of Belgian beers, we liked using fresh orange zest. So we actually have to zest about 40 pounds of oranges, 2 boxes of oranges for each barrel. So it gives our low man on the totem pole in the brewery kind of a workout, zesting all those oranges. But we think it really makes a unique style of beer. So here's to our Saison. Cheers.